Hello, I hope you can hear me. Just let me know if you can hear me. Excellent. Excellent. Very good. Uh, okay. First of all, because this is a doubt clearing class, let me congratulate all of you on your performances at the internal assessment. You have done a very good job. Almost everybody. I think everybody, not almost, everybody. Just a few words of guidance. regarding your answers. I will not take, if you have any questions, please do come on chat, and you're free to interrupt and ask anything, whatever I'm talking about. You can just come up on chat and ask me anything, any further, for any further information. The main thing that I'd like to point out, some of you have got things absolutely spot on, while others, there are just a few areas of improvement. Nobody's done badly, nobody's done it wrong, but just a few areas of improvement, just so that you can make it even better. When a question is asked, first of all, read the question very carefully. Exactly what is it asking you? Is it asking you to comment on, say, for example, the glass menagerie as a memory play? Just an example. If they're asking you about the glass menagerie as a memory play, concentrate on that. Do not give the entire story of the play. Remember, memory play was a term coined by Tennessee Williams. Although he was influenced by a lot of others, or he got his ideas, but it was actually a term coined by Tennessee Williams. And concentrate on what exactly is a memory play, what are the characteristics, why, and which are the features of the play that match the concept of a memory play. That there is a narrator, that he's narrating from his what he remembers, and the actions take place. Similarly, for example, if you're asked, what are the features of tragedy according to Aristotle? So avoid talking about how great Aristotle was, or the other aspects of what he had to say about tragedy, but exactly what did he mean? What are the main features of tragedy? Concentrate on that. So read your question. Also, another thing is, look at the marks. Most of you, all your questions were of 10 marks. Hence, the best thing to do is to make your answers concise, concentrate on the exact question asked, and not prevaricate or dwell upon other things about the author, what he did, where he went. Not needed, really. I had spoken to you about, one minute, let me just see if I can embed this. If I can't, I'll put this on WhatsApp. I think if you hear Edward's side live, you'll understand because some of the areas, they need to be clarified. For example, what Edward's side meant exactly by Orientalism. And mind you, he, as I always keep saying, most of the times, all these philosophers, they were speaking in context with in the context of their time. So I told you when I was teaching Aristotle that he was at that point of time, Greece had lost to Sparta, and it was the need of the hour was that a strong, physically and mentally strong nation is built. Hence, Aristotle had to write about that. That was the need of the hour. So I'll just try and embed. Let's see if I can do that. I'll do it on WhatsApp. Have a look at this when you can. It's a very interesting interview. Unfortunately, Saeed is not alive. One second. Can you see this? Just check if you can access the link to the YouTube video of Edward Said. Hello, good afternoon, Vishwadeepa. Can you see the? I said just sent a link on WhatsApp. Did you see? Can you see that? You can watch the video later. It's a long video, but it's extremely interesting and it gives you a very clear insight as to. You can see it. Yeah, good, excellent. It's a very interesting insight into what exactly he meant by Orientalism, and it'll also help you uh, decide for yourself. Good, brilliant. So it'll also help you decide for yourself why he felt the way he felt. There are a lot of other writers who have dwelt upon this particular area, and they have also come up with similar sentiments, not exact sentiments, but similar sentiments. Okay, I'll close this video. And in a couple of days' time, I'm just preparing some more notes for you. Okay, thank you, Kathakali. Some more notes for you, which I'll leave on the in the Google Classroom on romantic, on Wordsworth, the Romantic period. Some of them are 1 minute. Let me just check this. Then things of John Stuart Mill, then Beauvoir's reading, biology, mimicry in man. I'll just leave some of these notes in the Google Classroom, the links you can read. Actually, I can just share with you straight away, maybe. This is Warwick University's note. You see, the idea is to, I've just shared a link on WhatsApp. You can have a look. You see, the idea is that you develop your own concept of what the authors are saying instead of just copying and pasting. Good afternoon, Simran. Now, do you have any other questions that you would like to ask me? You can type it. Mainly, my main concern is that you avoid writing what is not necessary in your answers and concentrate on what is asked of you. Read your question very carefully. Otherwise, you will lose marks. What you will do is you will write less on what is asked of you and you'll write more of, because the examiner or the professor knows the story. He or she knows the background of the author. So concentrate on the question, exactly what it's asking you. Say if you're asked, what do you think of Hamlet as a tragic hero, for example? So you don't have to tell the whole story in the entire story of the play. You have to concentrate on what Hamlet does, what is the concept of a tragic hero, whether he matches exactly the concept of a tragic hero, whether he's an Aristotelian tragic hero or another kind of tragic hero or a classical or a neoclassical, whichever kind. But what are his characteristics that make him a tragic hero? Whether it's his vacillating character, whether it's his procrastination, whether it's his weakness, whether he's his inability to rise to the occasion, whether it's his fear of being unsure of what to do, anything, whatever is the main characteristic that makes him a tragic hero, not the entire story of Hamlet. Good afternoon, Archie. And all of you, please remember to fill in your attendance sheet. Do you have any questions? You can ask me in the chat. Anything that you're not understanding. Or do you have any reservations, everything in anything that you'd like to know? I noticed curiously none of you answered Spivak. Why was that? I don't know, at least the ones that I corrected. One of the best ways to understand a lot of these modern critics is to watch their interviews, because what may not come out in the writing, because it's all a very passive delivery, it's a one-sided thing. You can always watch their interviews, because they dwell upon many areas and they clarify and they bring in other authors as well, And it's quite interesting to hear them speak, actually. Like I said, Edward Said did. Do you have any questions? Anyone? Plato's Republic. A ver, 1 second. Did you miss out on my slides on Plato's Republic? 1 minute. Let me just get into my presentation. Just give me a second. I'll get into my PowerPoint presentation. share. Okay, go out of here, share, wait, share screen. Why can't I find this? No, I can't do. 1 minute. Just give me a second. Cancel. No, this is not what I'm trying to do. Anyway, I think I'll just speak. You've got my, I think you've got my slides already. Why isn't it allowing me? 1 second. Can you see the, can you see the, wait. No, it's going away. Hang on. Ah, of course, I'm making a mistake. Stupid woman. 1 minute. 1 minute. Window. Wait. Aquí tengo. Here. Just give me a second. It's buffering. Now, that is not on. Great. Okay, great. So now let me just share this with you. One second. Okay, share screen, share a window. Got it. Okay, so you can see this that for Plato, as I said, it the well, Plato was actually there's a systematic questioning of being, as the Republic itself is an attempt to answer a problem in human behavior, justice. In particularly in Book Three, I'm going because we only have 3 and 10. He wants a collective unit of self-government and the relationship between the structure of the republic and the attainment of justice. He talks about justice. Why? There is a systematic questioning of being. To deal with the problem of justice, Plato considers the ideal city or polis, or, well, sort of nation, a collective unit of self government. And the relationship, because you see, I think he was, not I think, it is true that he saw that there was, what happened is, he saw that why people became physically, mentally, morally, spiritually weak by leading too much of a hedonistic life. There was too much insistence on pleasure and individual uh, enjoyment. There was very little thinking. There was very little overall goodwill for people. So the philosopher king should be knowledgeable. He should have a particular objective, a particular goal in building the nation. And as such, he should be without greed, without any moral depravity as such. Moral, I would say, he shouldn't be lacking in high moral standards. He should be knowledgeable. And that is how you bring about a just state. Hence, your question was, what did he mean by the philosopher king? So, the philosopher king is the lover of wisdom, of knowledge, and he wants to learn the truth, that is, the truth of being, or rather, he should be shorn of any kind of artificial worldly pleasure as such. If he's too interested in just living a good life, very basically, if he's too interested in just living a good life, he will not be able to govern. So he wants to learn the truth as distinct from the false illusions being sold by the sophists. The learning of the philosopher is therefore the acquisition of true infallible knowledge. Are we clear on this? And he says that they should be courageous people. He should, there should not be people who say that, I mean, the philosopher king or the ruler should be a courageous person. He must not say, you see, when he was criticizing Homer, he was saying that Achilles was saying that I really don't want to die. I mean, not in so many words, but he was saying that dying is no great achievement because you suffer, you die, your body suffers. You obviously so and Hades is no nice place to live in. On the other hand, Plato says that the warrior should be a courageous guy and not think that Hades is it's a place under the earth, as Homer says, like a vapor vanished the gibbering soul, or even bats in the hollow of some mysterious grotto fly with a, he says, a flittermouse. It's not you shouldn't be scared of going into the world of the dead. You shouldn't be scared of dying. You shouldn't be scared of crossing the river Styx. But on the other hand, you should be proud to put your life down if needed for your country, for your nation. You should be proud of being a war hero. You should be, see, this was everything that he was saying was to build up the morale of the nation, of the citizens, of the ideal city. And as I said, that was the need of the hour because they had lost a huge war. It was a huge humiliation. The general morals were down, and his objective was that lead a simple life, build a strong body, build a strong mind, build a courageous spirit, and live the life as far as you can, the life of a hero. Hence the quest for knowledge, hence the quest for truth, hence for the quest for a philosophical understanding of life. To an extent, I would say distancing oneself of from what's in it for me, that kind of thought. Think of yourself as a nobler entity. That is what Plato was trying to say in his Republic. That is how you build a republic, or you build a nation. Do you have access to your self-learning material? It's, see, in Plato's day, it was all very easy to tell anybody that it's there's nothing great in it's something. So what if you lay down your life? You're doing it for your country. So that was a kind of a nationalistic, very strong nationalistic feeling that I'm laying my life down. But then who wants to die? A general, a normal human being. You can't just go and say, go and die for your country. I mean, go and die. You can't just tell people. But somehow the morals had to be boosted. Somehow people had to be encouraged to lead a life, at least that would strengthen the country. Here he is calling the Kalis, the nation, the city. But all citizens, by and large, at least should attempt to lead a cleaner, non gratifying, so to speak, or free from greed. That's why he says in another part that they shouldn't be allowed to possess anything, any personal, any land or any personal possession or something. They should share their meals. So it's kind of a community building, coming together with people, thinking in terms of the greater good. That is what he was trying to bring out in general. Do you have access to self-learning material in the RBU website? So if you go through it, it'll, but do it in bits and pieces because it's quite profound. It's quite, remember, it is actually in the form, it's not really in the form of an essay. It's basically Socrates is saying this, Socrates said that, and so says that, so and so says that. Questions are brought up. But go through it in bits, bit by bit. You'll understand that this was the essence of what Plato was trying to say. And that's why he wanted probably to go away from something like, in his way, that stay away from over imaginative discourses like poetry or play or whatever. It's concentrate on reality, concentrate on building your character, concentrate on building a strong body. That's what he was trying to say. The problem is this whole thing is in form of dialogues. I understand what you say, most true. So it's not in the form of an essay. You have to read through it and kind of get your get your own gist of the whole thing. And then you have the difficult Greek names. Did you understand the concept of the philosopher king? So the philosopher king is, what he's really trying to say is that the king is not just a head of state ruling. He must have some sort of profundity of character, or profundity, some sort of profundity of his mind, or he must have some sort of philosophical insight into life, and not just indulge. I mean, if he's going to war, there must be a thought behind it. That is what he's trying to say. See, Plato's social strata was really not, it was a very practical way of describing the guardians who are guarding or guiding rather the nation, governing the city. And then there are the auxiliaries then who are the soldiers who are protecting. If you think of our own the Indian system, it was the same thing. We had the Brahmins who are really the thinkers or the philosophers or the teachers. Then we had the Kshatriyas who were protecting. They were the ones who were going to war, they were protecting, they were ruling, they were administrating. And then we had the business class, the people who were actually doing the transactions or business. And then I wouldn't call it the lowest class, but the other class was those who were producers, the farmers, the artisans, etc. So these were the three social strata. And it was all based on very what was actually happening in those days. And to remember, I've been saying this repeatedly again and again and again, is that he wanted it to be a very disciplined, well structured society. Hence, the job descriptions should be very clear. You do your job and I do mine. But be sincere in what you are doing. Be knowledgeable in what you are doing. That is what he was. The three social strata, the auxiliaries, the philosophers, that is the guardians, the philosophers, and the workers, the providers. So it was a very well defined social strata, three social strata. Now, this was not to say that somebody is a higher strata and somebody is a, that is something that human attitude developed as, which is very sad. There is no, I don't think it was really thought of as the higher class or the lower class. This was your job. Now, that did not mean that you think about the Indian structure. If you think of the Ramayana, King Janaka, he used to till his own land. That's how he found his daughter Sita. He found her at the end of when he was tilling his land. So there were rajas and rishis. That's why we call them rajarshi. Or the king himself could be tilling his land. The king himself could be a rishi as well as he could become a warrior. So sometimes we have seen, which is very noble, I feel, that occupations overlapped. But establish a basic discipline, there should be jobs assigned to certain classes of people according to their expertise. Not everybody can become a philosopher. At the same time, not everybody can become a soldier. Not everybody can become an artisan or a farmer. So he was really saying that these three social strata should be created according to the skills and the abilities, and let each one get on with their jobs. At the same time, Plato had said that supposing a farmer shows brilliance, academic brilliance, he can be brought into he could be, I mean, I wouldn't like to use the word promoted, but he could be shifted to another discipline. He didn't have to remain an artisan in a fabrication fabricator. What is a fabricator? Factory, for example. Or even an artisan could become a writer or a philosopher, or he could come up with philosophical thoughts. So he didn't, if you read Plato, he has said that it is not that watertight, that if you are an artisan or if you are a potter, if you are a farmer, there's no way you can study and do something else. It was not like that. or you can't become a warrior for that matter. But understand, acknowledge, and respect everybody's basic skills and let them get on with their jobs. That is all he said. Those were the three strata that he described. But there should be some. His point was that there should be, in a just state, there should be some demarcation and there should be some job description. You can't just catch hold of somebody and say, from tomorrow you're going to till the land. Now, if you call it class distinction, go ahead and do it. But I don't think it was something, he wanted to make it something derogatory as such. And that way, his idea was also that that way everybody could shine in his own area. If you see the possibilities, if you see the potential in people and assign them to the areas where they would shine, it's a much better way to utilize the resources. Now we call it social distinctions, call what you will. But it's not meant to say that so and so is lower or so and so is higher. I wouldn't believe that. Are we clear about this? Are we clear about this? The three social strata? The thinkers, the philosophers or the guardians, the auxiliaries, that is the protectors, and the providers. And then I've elaborated on that. Okay. Anything else? What else would you like to know? See, Plato himself was obviously he was a philosopher, but in those days, the Greeks, the Spartans, they they only had themselves and their own experiences to tell them what to do. Think about it. We've lost a war. Here is a situation. We've lost a war, a very humiliating defeat we've suffered. Why? Because we were a weak nation. Why were we a weak nation? Basically, we were weak morally, physically, spiritually, and intellectually. Now, what does it bring about? We were not training our bodies. We were not honing our own skills. We were simply facing up to an emergency situation. We have to go to war, so just catch anybody and throw him into the war zone. That is not. If you have a well described, well defined job area, then each one can excel, and let the thinkers think out the strategies. Let the thinkers, the philosophers strategize. Let the warriors train themselves, make themselves physically fit, discipline themselves so that they know that they have a job to do and they must be good at it. So there is no anarchy as such. When an emergency arises, whenever there is a crisis situation, each one knows his job and each one has gained enough experience and has trained himself and built himself professionally in his own area of skill or expertise. That was the whole objective. Any other questions? If not, I'll just take a 2-minute break. 5-minute break. Yeah, I'll come back in 5 minutes. Meanwhile, you can think and post questions in the chat, and I'll come back and answer. Okay, I'm back here. So no, because I didn't teach you structuralism, so I didn't have any slides prepared. Let me just share this with you. Can you hear me now? Hello. Okay. So have a look at this. See, first you have a look at these three slides, and then I shall just read this part. That the real is decomposed and recomposed. Basically, it's digested and recomposed within the head according to the rules of a functioning simulacrum. Simulacrum is uh, it's like if you know what simulation is. It's given the is a representation or imitation of a person or a thing. What you call a simulator. Like you have a similarity, something similar, hence simulacrum.
Simulacrum. Simulacrum.
A reflection, caricature for that matter, representation, likeness. One second, let me just go to the next slide. Let me make it a bit bigger. In your mind, you're basically creating a likeness of what you have read or seen with by adding your own intellect. The same thing that Dehida says deconstruction. Basically, it's whatever you know it as, you deconstruct it and you add your own thoughts to explain it to yourself. Very roughly, it's that. See, he was interested in the plural qualities of code, so many layers of meanings could be given. So dissection and arrangement, I would say rearrangement. So deconstruct, rearrange. They had a lot of time in their hand to do that. And basically to add different dimensions to the understanding of an object, a thought, or whatever is presented to you, whether you're reading something, whether you're analyzing or evaluating an object of art or a painting. So all you do is you take it in, you deconstruct or you fragment it in your own head, dissect it, and then you put it together with your own intellectual input. Can you see this? See, Barthus, he went to Japan also because he was very interested in semiotics, in sign language, or emblems, or mnemonics. So, what does a mnemonic or a sign language or for example, a logo or any representative symbol, what does it communicate? When he talks about the death of the author, in a way, these people are saying that do we really need an author to tell us what it is? Or does the human mind dissect and make its own evaluation and its own restructure the whole thing in his or her own mind? Do we really need to have text? Or do we acknowledge and recognize things in our own head? It's kind of he developed a theory of science to demonstrate that this is that he says that the study of semiotics or the study of science useful in interpretation. He says this is really this is really the first order of linguistic system, that you recognize something as a sign or a simulation of something, and you take that in, reconstruct it in your own head. He says this is a picture of a dark bottle signifier, is a signifier that relates to a specific signified, for example, a fermented alcoholic beverage. And many people can take many interpretations of the same thing. In fact, it said that it challenged the belief that a work of literature reflected a given reality because the human mind is capable of giving different layers, different dimensions, different. Uh, One can make different meanings out of one single object. So, structuralism regarded language as a closed, stable system. And very basically, it's just looking at the world in terms of structure. And why it, you would, why it should be, why a fixed structure that is represented should be challenged. The human mind is encouraged to interpret it in his or her own way. So that's how it would say, instead on how human behavior is like each cultural background, social background, psychological background, it can influence in drawing the meaning of a particular structure. You can have a read of this. 1 minute. This should give you, see if you can copy and access this. Let me see if I have any more reading material on this. No, not right now. If I find something a bit more easier, this thing, I'll post it on the WhatsApp group. Read this for the time being, just to understand structuralism and how different people came into interpret. Can you access this? You can keep it. You can upmark it as a later read if you want. Let me do something. Let me just create a Google Classroom and Three unities of a tragedy. Okay, let me just go to my. Okay, the three unities. What are the three unities? I have already given you in the thing. The three unities is unity of action. The play should have one main action that it follows, not a jumbled up. Mind you, a lot of our great playwrights did not follow that. But in the classic, in Aristotle's way, it should have one action, one main action that it follows with no or few subplots. Basically, action or plot, there should be a single plot. Unity of place, a place should cover a single physical space. and should not be a bit here, bit there, bit there. Imagine a lot of Shakespeare's plays would have been unappreciated by Aristotle. If you think of the travel and whatever, I mean, if you think of Midsummer Night's Dream or even Hamlet or wherever, unity of place should be cover a single physical space and should not attempt to compress geography, nor should the stage represent more than one place. So imagine a Midsummer Night's Dream is happening only within the forest, or the Merchant of Venice. It's not happening once in Portia's house, once in Venice. No, in one particular place, the stage should be just one area, one space, one place. If it's a living room, it's a living room. And the unity of time, he was very strict about it, that the action in a play should take place over no more than 24 hours. So these were the three unities. The time, it limits the unity of time, it limits the supposed action to the duration roughly of a single day. And the place is to one general locality. So if it's the courtyard, it's a courtyard. If it's a court, a palace court, it's a palace court. And the unity of action is to single set of incidents, which are related as cause and effect, having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And concerning the unity of time, he noted that all the plays like Aeschylus, except two, did illustrate such unity, but he did not lay down such as a precept, as obligatory. Because, see, think of the practicalities. In Aristotle's days, there was the chorus during the whole performance. So it would indeed be awkward always to devise an excuse for moving 15 people or 10 people or even 3 people, moving them about from one place to another. So it was all a part of the stagecraft, that there is either the previous incidents are being narrated by the chorus, things are being commented. The chorus is commenting on the incident that is taking place on the stage, saying, look, you did this, hence this is followed. So now the main concentration of the play is in this current time, in this current place. Right now, for example, Electra is mourning her father, or Desdemona is being killed. So there is, supposing it was in the days of Aristotle, it is just that Othello comes in. Forget all these things of Othello finding the handkerchief or whatever, and Iago cheating him. So in his days, it would have been just Othello coming into the room, trying and with the objective of, with the intention of killing Desdemona. So it would have just taken place there. And probably there would have been 3 people in the chorus saying, oh, Othello, you married Desdemona with so much love and so much of faith and so much of this. But, so the story would have been probably narrated by the chorus. The play would have taken place just in those 10-15 minutes, could be an hour or something, but the concentration would have been just that particular sequence, that particular situation. The fact that Othello had met Iago, or he's been told this, or that he'd found a handkerchief, or he used to love Desdemona, or that Desdemona's father had disapproval for their wedding or their marriage or their union, all that would have been narrated probably by the chorus had it been in Aristotle's time. But it doesn't happen like that in Shakespeare's plays or any such as such. And the third unity of action is bound up with the nature. It's basically actually not only just Greek drama, but all drama. See, Oedipus Rex, Antigone. Antigone goes to or Oedipus Rex when he's discovering that he has married his mother. It happens when the messenger comes in to inform him. And all that has happened before and all that is going to happen then is related. But the concentration of the play, the action of the play, is happening in that particular place, that particular spot, in those few hours. All his laments, his frustration, his misunderstanding is happening there only. So those are the three unities. A lot of people digressed, they moved away from that, and a lot of people actually went back to that. You see, some of plays, for example, Shakespeare's Tempest, the entire play takes place on an island. And the story, the background story, is related by Prospero, who was the ex-Duke of Milan. And it suggested that Prospero's way of regularly checking the time of day during the play might be, sometimes some people say that it's satirizing the concept of the unities. But sometimes when you say history, when there are historical plays, it might be difficult to maintain the unity of time, because it can happen. I mean, it's taking place over so many years. If you think of King Lear, just as one example, King Lear is how the play is progressing from his young days when Cordelia is young and he's not trusting her and he's giving away his kingdom to his two older daughters, and then with time, it has to show that with time the two older daughters, they show their true colors, and then he actually realizes that, then he goes into the prison, and then he dies, and then with Cordelia in his arms. So it happens over a long time and in different situations, different spaces. Think of Winter's Tale. The chorus notes that the story makes a jump of 16 years. So sometimes it's not so easy to maintain. But those were the concepts, particularly in terms of tragedy. Remember, tragedy itself is a very intense, it wants to bring out with intense action, very intense emotions. Hence, the insistence on concentrating in one place, one particular frame of time, and one action. Everything has to be very concentrated in order to emphasize the intensity of the incident and the intensity of the audience's reaction. Hence, the maintenance of unity. And also, you think of the stagecraft in those days. I mean, in those days, you couldn't show the so much so that if you when you go through the Midsummer Night's Dream, you see there is one person who's representing moonshine, because there is Shakespeare's plays used to take place during the day, in the day. So there was no evening, no lighting. Forget artificial lighting and artificial stage props. So it was very difficult. One has to take into account the I mean the idea, the concept of stagecraft had to be taken into account. How do you represent these things? Any more questions? Welcome. See, also remember that the classical concept of any art was fairly uh, quite Puritan, you know. It should be very plain, straight, not too complicated, not too elaborate, not too many plots, no complexity. Keep it straight, simple. And not a lot of, shouldn't be too verbose also. Some, it was intended. But remember, a lot of the English plays, some French plays also, they have been, just think of the soliloquy of Hamlet. It just goes on. Or even Polonius telling Laertes what he should do, what he shouldn't do. So some people did break away from. There were long speeches, there were soliloquies, there were interactions, long interactions. So some digressions were there, and of course you can't constantly stick to guidelines like that. And in most cases, for example, you can't maintain unity of action, particularly if you're writing a comedy. How would you maintain one action? Because many actions lead to many misunderstandings and then the clearing of the misunderstanding. So you have to shift from a palace to a jungle, to there, here, to there, to you have to be shipwrecked, you have to find your old lost brother or sister or children or parents or whatever. So it can't really always stick to the those rules of three unities. Anything else you would like to know? It'll be interesting to find the digressions from the three unities and how most of the great playwrights, particularly Shakespeare, who was the most adventurous one, he did stick to some of them, but moved away from most of them. I mean, if you think of Macbeth as a play, he meets the three witches in one place, then he goes into the castle, then just the roaming around of Lady Macbeth itself needs space. You can't just say that Lady Macbeth is in one place, she's moving in circles and talking to herself, or the killing of the king, or it has to have different places. It has to have a change of scene. Sometimes it also depends on the art form. Many times, remember in those days, in the olden days, it was all through the chorus, the description, the narration that people knew about a situation. For example, I had, this was about 35 years ago, I watched this absolutely fabulous movie of Hamlet, where Hamlet's soliloquy is so beautifully portrayed. It, I think it was somewhere in Scotland where this whole thing was pictured, and he's so desolate. His desolation, his loneliness, his frustration. He's leaning against a very ragged, craggy mountain, part of a mountain, and the sea beneath him is thrashing. And he doesn't speak a word. It's just his voice speaking, to be or not to be. And the entire situation The entire scenario was so effective in expressing his frustration, his indecision, his that he feels a lack of empathy from everybody. Nobody's understanding his problem. He's as lonely as the mountains, he's as restless as the stormy sea. And it was so beautifully portrayed, and it was spoken in a very low voice, as it should be, that he's really talking to himself. Now imagine in a play, he would have to shout it out. To be or not to be, that is the question. To tell the people, to speak to the audience. But there are certain, that's why I said that stagecraft comes into play still. Any more questions? Any more doubts? Anybody else? Anybody else? Or shall we close the discussion? Any more questions? I hope you've all filled up your attendance form. Anyone else with questions? Any other doubts to clear? Or and yeah, remember to fill up your attendance forms. Don't forget. Okay. Let me see what my notes say. So, hybridity is one of the most widely employed and most disputed terms. It's one of my slides that you'll see in. Basically, it creates a hybrid group of people who are, it's like the third space of enunciation, cultural identity, which emerges in this contradictory and ambivalent space. One minute. So they are, what is a hybrid? It's really a mix, a crossbreeding of two species. Why did they want it? The colonizers wanted it because they wanted people who were not exactly like them, but in a lot of ways like them. So it was really like they were trying to whitewash the cultural differences, but keeping them as, they were not really converting them, they were not really recreating them as the whites. So they are there, but not quite. So you know your place. It's a sign of a double articulation, a strategy which appropriates the other as it visualizes power. So when you create a hybrid, it is you. One minute. Because the colonizer, what he wants is, first of all, he wants to create an in-between race. He's the colonizer, the others are the others, the colonized. But he wants to groom some of them into thinking like the ruler, into speaking like the ruler, and also they would help kind of percolate the colonizer's culture into the other culture. So this is the hybrid that is, it's a mix of the colonizer and the colonized, but not quite exactly the colonizer. See, it's like something that is used in horticulture. The term refers to crossbreeding of two species by grafting or cross pollinating to form a third hybrid species. So then it could be many forms: linguistic, cultural, political, racial. Linguistic examples include something like the Creole language or even the Anglo Indian. If we think of the Indian English, it's really a hybrid of proper English and the idea of polyphony of voices in society. So the term hybridity has been most recently associated with, the colonizer colonized relation stresses their interdependence. So Bhabha contends that all cultural statements and systems are constructed in a space that he calls the third space of enunciation. And cultural identity always emerges in this contradictory and ambivalent space. So not clearly understood space. Who am I? The hybrid species is in itself perhaps in at a loss to understand its own identity. So he says it's significant that the productive capacities of the third space have a colonial or post colonial provenance. This is the in between space that carries the burden and meaning of culture, and this is what makes the notion of hybridity so important. Hybridity has frequently been used in post colonial discourse to mean simply cross cultural exchange. And often, the term has often widely been criticized since it usually implies negating and neglecting the imbalance and inequality of the power relations it references. Because mostly hybridity is caused by, comes out of the need of the colonizer, really. So it's really like whitewashing the cultural differences, regarded as replicating assimilation policies. So you kind of mask or whitewash the cultural differences. But at the same time, the hybridized person or the hybridized lot, they are not really considered as one of them. You're simply an in between space. And this is particularly held, this theory is particularly held by some proponents of decolonization and anti colonialism. And there are many theories on this. And also, when we talk of stereotype, it's one second. So the stereotype is an identity that stems as such from the mastery and pleasure as it does from anxiety and defense of the dominant. So hybridity itself as a strategy produces these, it kind of makes a fetish out of the colonizer, that I have to be like him. So these are all concepts of how the colonizer dominates the culture of the colonized, or creates a hybrid, or creates a stereotype, should be someone. It has the agenda of bringing a society down while bringing another society up, which is actually the it kind of creates a sort of hierarchy where the colonizers are on top. It is a kind of reductionist view of a society, and usual only, and it only portrays outward appear. It kind of, what is a stereotype? You just see the external aspects of the particular person. So the brown sahib is a stereotype, that he tries to be like the white man, like the colonizer, but he's not that. And he or she's trying to be a mem sahib, or trying to be like the white woman or the mistress, but is not quite that. So when you think of colonials, remember, these are all concepts of, in the context of colonization. So is it really was used by the colonizers because it creates an identity with a large group of people, whether it's correct or not. And it's when we say very typical, it's a fixed concept that you see. When you say stereotype, it's really a fixed concept of what you should be and what you shouldn't be, or what is really accepted. So that is what we mean by, and particularly in the context of colonization, that see all these things, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's a fetishism, whether it's stereotyping, it's all done, or it all takes place because the colonizer wants, to an extent, a dominant position in the colonized countries. So they want to create a hybrid species. They want to create stereotypes whom they will probably tell you that, oh, you're just one of us. You've just become like us. It's almost like upgrading some of the colonized people, in order to procure more dominance, to procure more control. Anybody else? So all these analysis that you find, first, you find something like the colonizers' use of violence, the colonizers' abuse, the colonizers' dominance, the colonizers' creation of hybrids, the colonizers' creation of stereotypes. Or even if you think of Edward Said, he says the colonizers' depiction of the colonized people, or what J.S. Mill sometimes called a benevolent despotism. So these are basically to justify the colonizers' ideas as to why I should occupy another territory, and also to consolidate their dominance and their rules. They will have to create they will have to bring part of the population of the colonized areas into their fold. They'll have to befriend, they'll have to uh, create one section of the society, colonized society, who will be on their side. Otherwise, there'll be constant acrimony, there'll be constant resistance. So if you think of the Babu class that was created, or some of the zamindars that were given special privileges, that all that was just to create, and this happens. We talk of colonization, but this happens in any kind of political situation. Like, even if you have wherever you have political parties or in any country, you create your own group of people. So you become like them. You kind of psychologically, culturally, intellectually groom them. And you try to make them feel that I'm part of the ruling class. It's a very common human sentiment that I'm part of the ruling class and I'm not really one of the natives, so to speak. So, I'm the preferred, I'm the privileged lot. That way, it's a very common sentiment. Anybody else? Whereas in some countries like Martinique or Algeria, there was, or particularly in a lot of the African countries, there was tremendous amount of violence. So it was there in India as well during our independence movement, or even during our mutinies. But this is we always see these in all colonized areas, that some people are for the rulers. That is the harsh reality, so to speak. The colonizers also wanted to feel safe in their colonized areas. So otherwise, why do you create a little England or a little India? I mean, India is not colonizing, but you try to mark your own territory and bring people into your fold. I find it here in Spain as well. They have these little English areas, or what if you call the French quarters for that matter. I'm not saying they're colonizing, but everybody wants that security, whoever is in another country. Some people adapt or they adopt the colonizers' culture, views, sentiments. That is reality. Anything else you'd like to know? Clarify. Thing is, some of these philosophers or literary critics, they took they had their own viewpoint. Just, and mind you, they were all like Edward Said. I have said it many times. If you see his video, you will see that he had very strong feelings about being dislodged from his own country, from his being driven out from his own country, and he has very strong sentiments about it. And then, of course, he reacts. He's saying that the West is depicting us in a certain way, which is not always true. And the same thing, if you read V.S. Naipaul's life, he became very bitter both about Trinidad and Tobago as well as England. But towards the end, he couldn't stay away from England. He went with his wife to live in Canada. He traveled the world. He went to many places. He wrote his novels all over the world. He even stayed in India for a long time. But eventually, he really used to miss England. And so these people, they all speak, all writers or all creative artists, we have to think about them when we evaluate or when we comment on their works. We'll have to think we have to take into account the situations and the circumstances that they were in at that particular time or at various times when they were writing. Anybody else? Any more questions? If any of you have questions or anything, you can send me a message, but please do not ping me at 5:30 in the morning. I'm 4.5 hours behind time. So when it's 10 o'clock or 10:30, 10 o'clock your time, it's really very, very early morning here. So just keep that in mind that I'm 4.5 hours behind time. So if you ping me around this time, this is good. It's about 10:30 here. It's fine. Not a problem. If you need any, you'll anyway check the classroom where I'll be leaving notes and some interviews, and you can ask me questions, but please not early morning. Late night, I don't mind, but not early morning, please. Okay, so we say goodbye, and it's been a pleasure to be teaching you, and good luck with everything. Please keep checking your classroom. Okay, thank you very much. And all of you stay safe and good luck with everything.